It's unfortunate, but it's inevitable.
Both the statutory manager and now Kieran Downey, the South Canterbury finance receiver, have made suggestions of money being handed over to Hubbard to be invested in a certain manner, and it hasn't been invested in that manner, i.e. the investors' instructions haven't been followed. I mean, I guess ultimately you could suggest here that might be a definition of a Ponzi scheme. I mean, do you think that a Ponzi scheme has been operated here?
I don't want to get drawn on the details, but certainly, actually, I wouldn't describe a Ponzi scheme necessarily in those terms. Or what I would say is there are situations where people can invest contrary to instructions, and it is not necessarily a Ponzi scheme. Indeed, one can commit a criminal offence by taking money for one purpose and investing it for another, even if that money wasn't lost, because the crime that we look at in that situation is the relationship between the individuals and the deception by which that person obtained the money. So a Ponzi scheme, you know, it certainly fits within that, but if you like, it's the very worst example of fraud or deception. There are certainly other levels of fraud which can occur and still be a crime.
Okay. I mean, I guess no charges have actually been laid yet. We're still a little way off making a decision, I think, maybe with the Arangi case a few weeks before you make a decision? We
considered a second report about a couple of weeks ago. The report was also considered with John Billington QC, who's our counsel on this. We've identified some additional information we want to follow up. That information needs to be obtained from a number of parties. It's got the feeling of 2-3 weeks around it because you're always chasing people down. It takes time. As I say, with the big caveat that we don't know what might happen tomorrow, but assuming things stay as they are today, I don't think at that point there will be much more we can do on the investigation. We will be at a point where we can make a decision one way or the other.
Now, look, obviously, moving on from South Canterbury Finance and Alan Hubbard, you've also announced today an investigation into the WSD group of companies. Can you give us an idea of what the SFO's concerns are around that group?
Well, it's an unusual case in that it doesn't, can't go too much into the details, and again, very early in the investigation, but it's a little unusual to, if you like, a typical case that we deal with, that the investors concerned, possibly victims, we don't know yet, appear to be primarily offshore, and it appears to be a case of where the New Zealand brand, the New Zealand reputation for being a well-regulated financial market, for having a lot of integrity around our processes, appears to have been marketed offshore, and off the back of that, the company in question appears to have attracted considerable investment. Again, we don't know the scale of that investment. We've only just begun tracing bank records, but it certainly appears to be investments in the millions of dollars. Quite where those investments have gone, big question mark over it.
Now, two fairly prominent politicians have been involved with that company. Certainly in the past, I'm not sure if they still are, Richard Worth and Matt Robson as directors and or shareholders. Are they likely to be spoken to during the investigation?
Look, I can't comment on that other than to say they are not names to date that I've seen in the papers that have come before me. Okay.
Look, I guess you've had a very busy week, flurry of announcements. Can we anticipate further new investigations to be launched in the short term to medium term?
I'd like to say it's going to be a very quiet time leading up to Christmas, but no, we've got, aside from the cases people already know about, there are a good number of investigations which we don't share publicly. It may be because we're dealing confidentially with an overseas enforcement agency. It may be there's an agency in New Zealand wants it kept quiet, or maybe that we consider tactically it's the right way to go. So we've got a good number of cases on the go already which people are not aware of. In due course, we'll be making announcements around those. And then we're also got cases, if you like, coming down the pipeline in the early stages of investigation, and some, not if all of those, will become full-blown investigations. it's a pretty busy time.
Could we see any of these investigations involving finance companies or similar entities?
Look, I think it'd be reasonable to assume that some of our investigations relate to finance companies. Some of them relate to matters that, inevitably, the kinds of things we investigate are of a scale that they are either currently in the public eye or may be in the public eye very shortly. And one can assume that if it involves money of a large scale and there are concerns being expressed publicly, there is a good chance we either are looking at it or will be looking at it.
Look, obviously you're busy at the SFO. You've got a lot of cases on the go. Do you have enough staff to cope, and what about the funding budget as well?
You're probably better asking the staff that. Look, it's a very busy time. I couldn't have expected in my wildest dreams 10 months ago that we'd have this much on. We've got about $630 million of losses under investigation, about another $250 million in cases that are being prosecuted. Average case of SFO investigations at the moment, about $35 million per case. Roughly 2 cases for every staff member. Those sums don't work because you need about 5 or 6 staff minimum per case. It's extremely challenging time.
Well, thanks for coming in, Adam. It's Adam Feeley, the CEO of the Serious Fraud Office, and I'm Gareth Vaughan from interest.co.nz, wrapping up another Double Shot interview.